Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Google Digital Garage. Just before we get started, just a few little quick tech tips. If you're having any trouble seeing or hearing the video right now, the best thing that you can do is just hit the refresh button. That fixes most issues that we find people have. And if you're still having problems, then if you go to the bottom right-hand corner of the YouTube video, there is a little cog. If you click on that, you'll be able to access your YouTube settings and have a fiddle about there. So welcome to managing your digital footprint for your job search. We've got a quick little bite-sized session for you today. It's only 15 minutes long, but hopefully will provide you with some really useful top tips for managing your digital footprint and making sure that it doesn't get in the way of finding your dream job. Just a little bit about myself before we get started. So my name is Zoe. I'm one of the trainers for the Google Digital Garage. You may have seen me on other webinars, and if you join our other webinars, I'm sure you will see me in the future. My background is in marketing, and so that covers obviously the digital footprint side of things. I've worked with people trying to manage their presence online, but also I've worked as team leaders, and I've been in charge of hiring and firing. Those things again have impacted, how your digital footprint can have an impact on your job search. And so I've been on that side of things, looking at people by using their digital footprints to work out whether they'd be a good candidate for a job. So I'm hopefully going to be able to share some of that expertise with you over the next 15 minutes. I'm also joined today by Mohammed. Mohammed is our moderator for today. He's another Digital Garage trainer. He's going to be in the live chat, which should just be over next to the video or below it. And in that live chat, you can ask questions, you can answer our questions, you can leave comments, you can say hi. All of that is going to help us make that session as good as possible. So let us know where you're joining us from. Let us know what you're hoping to get from today's session. And let's get started. So today we've got two main objectives for this little session. Number one, we're going to help you understand what exactly your digital footprint is. And number two, we're going to help you evaluate your social media and learn what sort of actions you need to take to make sure that it is as attractive as possible to any potential recruiters who might come across it, who might see it, and might make judgments about you based on what they see, which is an option, which is a possibility. And that's what we're going to look at first. So what do we mean when we say digital footprint? Everything you do on the internet leaves a footprint, leaves some kind of record that you were there. Think of it like walking on a beach. No matter what you do, if you're walking on a beach, if you're walking on wet sand, you're going to leave some kind of a footprint. And sometimes that can be deliberate. Sometimes you might draw a big picture in the sand. You might make a big smiley face and say hi and leave that for the next person. But sometimes it's accidental. It's literally your footprints. And it can be good, it can be bad. Some of what gets left behind on a beach is litter, people throwing away their rubbish. That's a bad footprint to leave. We don't want that to be left. When it comes to online, it's very similar. Sometimes the things that we do online, the things that we leave, they're deliberate. We're deliberately putting tweets on Twitter and Facebook posts on Facebook and Instagram images on Instagram. We're doing that deliberately. We're leaving that as a very deliberate footprint, but also things like your browsing history, your purchase history, things that other people have tagged you in. And of course, things that you posted online deliberately, but so long ago that you've forgotten about them and they might not represent you or who you are right now. So all of these things make up a digital footprint. And it's important because your online presence can impact whether or not you get hired. So the statistic here, really, really surprising statistic for me when I first heard it. 57% of recruiters, according to the Harvard Business Review, said that they had discovered content by looking at someone's online presence that caused them not to hire somebody. Now, different people have got different opinions on this. I would always say that, if I see that you enjoy going out and getting drunk with your friends, that's your own business. That's not going to affect my business really. Obviously, if you're unprofessional about it and bring it into the workplace, that would be a problem. But if you've just got some photos of you being a bit silly on Facebook, I'm not too bothered about that. Some recruiters might, though. They might say, well, that's proof that you're, maybe not as good as somebody else. Maybe if they have to choose between two people, one of them goes out and does a lot of partying and one of them doesn't, they'll go for the one that doesn't. But of course, we all have our limits. So, for an example, if I was to look at a candidate's Facebook page and I found racist or homophobic or sexist or transphobic content, I would not want to hire them as a result of that. I would put their CV straight in the bin as a result. So you've got to think everybody's got their limits. Every recruiter, every CEO, every hiring manager, they've got that thing that would stop them from hiring you. You don't want that thing to be online. You want to give yourself the best chance possible. And even if, like, I don't think recruiters should be that fussed about, pictures of you partying with your friends, but people are. And that could be the difference between you getting your dream job and you not getting it. So we need to think about how to manage your online presence. So your digital footprint, to sum up what I was saying before, your digital footprint is all of the information that exists online about you. Everything online has got a footprint, so it could be a brand, could be an organization, but for you, it's all of the little bits and pieces that make up your online activity. So for example, it could be content that you share, and that's things that you've created yourself. So again, I might put a picture of myself online. That's content that I've shared. It could also be things other people have created that I've shared. If I read an article that I really agree with, I might share it on Twitter, or I might retweet somebody else's posts. And again, a recruiter could use that to judge me and decide whether I'm the right fit for a job. It's also things like the pages you follow. Remember, that's public information. If I go onto your Twitter page, for example, I can look at all the accounts that you follow. If I find that you follow a whole bunch of really nasty accounts, then I might think less of you as a result. It's also things like the posts that you're tagged in. You might not have created any kind of content, but someone might tag you in a post and say, hey, this reminds me of you, or something like that, or try to get in an argument with you online. All of this is part of your digital footprint. It's part of your online presence. And we need to be aware of that, because we're going to use that, or recruiters could be using that to decide whether or not to hire you. So what we need to do then is look at our social media and have a bit of an evaluation. What is it that is on your social media that you want to be there? What is on your social media that you don't want to be there? And what can you do about it? So first thing to do, assess your content. Think about all of the platforms that you use. Think about the audiences you have on each platform and think, right, where should I be and where shouldn't I be? Is there some area that, for example, if you've got an anonymous Reddit account, for example, that's probably fine. That's probably not going to be connected to you. It could be if someone wants to do enough detective work, but probably fine. However, your Facebook page, your LinkedIn page, those are probably connected directly to you. Your Twitter page, again, you might have shared content across both your Twitter and Instagram pages or something. You might be able to connect those to you. So think about the platforms that you're on and how they are connected directly to you. And then look at the content that you've published on those platforms. So, for example, have you mentioned, again, is your content inclusive? Is it kind? Does it have the potential to harm somebody? Remember, again, if you post content that could be construed as prejudiced against a group of people, then that's going to harm them, and it's going to harm you as a result. Again, like I said, that would be my sort of red line. I wouldn't hire anybody who had that kind of content, because I don't want to know the kind of person who would put that kind of content online. So you've got to assess your content. You might have said something stupid back in the past. You might have said things you didn't realize were hurtful. We've grown up with social media. My first social media account, I think I got it when I was 17. It's the same account that I still use. And every so often I see a post come up from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and I think, oh, that's cringy. I wouldn't say that nowadays. Not because it's hurtful, but just because it's embarrassing, because I was a kid. And we do embarrassing things when we're kids. But it's worth going back and thinking about, did I use words that I didn't think were harmful back then, but now I realize are harmful, and things like that. You also might want to look at, have you accidentally shared content from somebody who's controversial? A big tactic from extremists online, especially far-right extremists, is they quite often publish content that seems pretty easy to agree with. Who here remembers when kids were tougher than they used to be? And people will say, yeah, I remember when kids were tougher than they used to be. And they don't know that what they've done there is they've shared content created by a right-wing extremist group. So that's something to look out for as well. Who are you actually sharing content for? Then you want to think who is in your network, who are you associating with? That's partly associating with those controversial figures, but also, are you posting, do you have a professional network and a personal network? Be aware that those two things can get crossed over if you're not careful. And of course, look at your privacy settings. So on LinkedIn, for example, you might have really high privacy settings that could be hurting your chances of getting seen by recruiters or employers. On Facebook, well, that's often going to be personal information, so it might be okay to make that as private as possible because you don't want people to discover you on Facebook. Take a look at your privacy settings, see who can see your social media posts and your profile, and make sure it's only the people you want to see them. Guidelines when you're on social media for the future. First of all, try to avoid confidential information about yourself. Obviously, LinkedIn, you're going to post things about yourself that are, your name, your address, your things like that, maybe. But on most social networks, it's a good idea to just protect yourself. I would never publish my home address on social media. I would never want anyone to know where I live. I might put something very vague, like my county or the city that's nearest to where I live. But I'd never post my actual address. Make sure your content accurately reflects your values. That includes past content. Again, avoid discrimination for obvious reasons. We don't want to be using hate speech. We don't want to be using discriminatory language. But again, we might have used it in the past not knowing that it was discriminatory, not knowing that it was hateful. Obviously, never post content showing or supporting illegal activities. You might think that's obvious, but think about something like drug use. People do post pictures of themselves online engaging in drug use, and it might not be anything that could lead to a criminal conviction, but an employer might look at that and think, well, okay, I'm not hiring that person. And try to be careful with previous employers as well. If you've had a really rubbish experience with a job, you still probably don't want to go on social media and go, hey, remember that old job I had? It was rubbish. The manager was terrible. You could potentially get sued for that kind of thing if it counts as slander. You can leave anonymous reviews on pages like Glassdoor, but remember that employers are going to be looking at your social media pages, and if they think you're going to badmouth them on social media, then they might not hire you as a result. So just be careful with that. Then the good things that you can do. So try and be active in your networks. Once you've sort of cleaned up your social media accounts, engage with people in your networks. Share really good, interesting content. Either create content yourselves about the different ways of thinking, different ways of approaching the world, or share other people's content. Try to engage with the companies you might want to work with. Follow them on social media, like their posts, engage with their posts, and of course, show your personality. It might seem like we're saying, flatten your personality and don't show who you really are. That's not the case. We want you to show who you really are. What are your hobbies? Are you adventurous? Are you creative? Are you insightful? Show people your personality through your social media accounts. You're much more likely to end up with a job as a result of that than if you try not to show any personality. So over to you. It's you guys' turn to think about how you're going to clean up your digital footprint. That is the end of this little bite-sized session. I can see we have got a question. Himanshu, you've asked, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right, by the way, there, Himanshu. Is there a way for Google to flag the inappropriate comments, the ones that are visible to public? Like you said, we've all grown up and we might have different views now versus then. Not directly, no. There are a few things that you can do to go through inappropriate comments. So first thing that you might have to do is just go through your social network. You can search. There are depending on the social network, there are different ways of searching for certain terms. So if you think, oh, there's a word I used to use when I was a kid, I didn't realize it was offensive. I want to check I've not used that on social media. You can search your account for that word. So that could be something that you can do. There are also ways of getting rid of, and this is quite extreme maybe, but if you're really concerned, you can delete your entire accounts. There's an app called DeseatMe. That's DESEAT.me. That's DESEAT.me. that you can use to find old social media accounts and just delete them completely, which can be a good idea. Again, if you've got social accounts that you've been on since you were a kid, go on, take any photographs or anything that you want to keep, take them offline, but then just delete the account, and that ensures that you're not going to get found out for anything that you might have said as a kid that might be inappropriate. So hopefully that helps. There isn't any obvious ways that Google can just flag all of your inappropriate comments. Unfortunately, it would be really useful if there was, but there are still things you can do. So thank you, everybody. Nice, quick, bite-sized session there. Hopefully it was useful. Big thank you to Mohammed, who's been lovely in the chat and really helpful moderator. And apart from that, there's nothing for me to say other than thank you. Thank you for your question, Himanshu. Thank you, everyone, for participating. And hopefully I will see you on another Digital Garage session at some point in the future. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.